Hey there, my name is Christopher Eves Ricks. I am the host of Africans Abroad, the podcast. Merry Christmas to all of you out there. Listen, this episode is a pretty unique one. It is unique mainly because our guest is not an African living in the diaspora, but rather an African American who is going to share his perspective on a specific topic within this season. Without giving you much more, I encourage you to watch the episode because it's going to be very interesting. So, yeah, kindly like, subscribe, share, and comment, and enjoy the episode. Okay, thank you. All right, all right. Okay, Virgil, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Let these people know who you are and what you do. Uh, I'm myself, I'm excited to hear a bit about you.
Yeah, yes,
So,
sir.
who is Mr. Virgil Johnson?
Well, as you all know, my name is Virgil Johnson. Former educator, current author, and professional speaker. Above all else, a loving husband, loving father, someone who's active in the community, someone who loves to just go out and pour into other individuals. And former coach, used to be a high school basketball coach. You're just someone who's just consistently growing and learning and growing and getting deeper into himself. Um, I've always been doing something different. So, just taking life one day at a time and then just going out and learning who it is that I'm supposed to be. So right now, the profession that I'm in is professional speaking. I've written a book. It's titled Making Your Enemy Your Footstool: How to Use the American System as a benefit for you as a Black individual in America. And then I also wrote a journal titled The Garden Bed of Life Journal, where I teach people how to take their ideas from being an idea and bring it into reality by just taking the steps that you go through when it comes to gardening. So planting the seed, the idea, watering it, pruning it, and then harvesting it and bringing it to fruition. So those are my two main works, and I'm also working on the children's book right now as well. So yeah, that's just me. That's me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's sounds like a lot. But I'm happy to hear about it as we go on in this conversation. But
Yes,
first,
sir.
I usually like to start off the conversation with going a bit back in time. You know, getting to know who we're talking to.
Hmm.
You are an African American born in the U.S., grew up born and raised in the U.S. Where exactly in the U.S. are you from? And
I'm
how was growing up? How was growing up where you grew up?
Warfare. Okay.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Florida. I currently live in Georgia right now, but I was
Hmm.
born and raised in Florida. So,
Okay.
I don't know if the audience is familiar with the South of the United States of America, but that's where I grew up at, in the South
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
United States. And being a Black man in the South, as well as having parents who had me at a young age, my mother and father conceived me when they were 13 and 15. So
Wow.
me growing up, my parents did the best that they can do. So, I
Yeah.
commend them on that. I don't, try to tear them down, but at the same time, I was growing up with my parents. So there were a
Hmm.
lot of things that I was learning about life while my parents were learning them as well. So there was
Yeah.
a lot of things that they couldn't really necessarily prepare me for. So I either had to learn it by trial and error,
Hmm.
or I just didn't learn it until I, became an adult male and became mindful of the things that I was missing and the things that I didn't get as a child. So growing up in the South, I look back over my childhood when I was in elementary school. Even though they had desegregation in the 60s, I'm 34 years old, so I'm in my mid 30s. So I was in elementary school late 90s. They were still busing us the from the urban inner city to the suburbs. So it was probably a bus full of Black kids at an all white school, So you know how that goes. And I got, stories of getting in trouble, white kids trying to fight me and I'm fighting back and I get in trouble. On the bus, one of the buses that had to go take the white kids to their home, their bus driver didn't show up, so they just put them on our bus, and our bus driver had us sit in the front of the bus and had them separate from us and told us if any of us talked, because we were all black kids, if
Yeah.
any of us talked, we got written up. And they were able to talk freely, just not really realizing the things that I had been through and understanding the racism that I had dealt with growing up, but knowing that it was there. As I started going back and looking back over my life, like, that was exactly what they told us it was. That
Right.
right there. So just dealing with that, and then going throughout middle school. Once I got to middle school, I was able to go to school in the inner city, but that was that was a journey within itself, because it's basically a culture shock. So I go from being in a predominantly white school with predominantly white students to then
Yeah.
going to an inner city black school where the school rating was low, the education part of it, wasn't really there. The kids, they weren't really focused on school. Like, it was a lot of violence, a lot of issues, a lot of fighting,
Mhm.
drugs, all of that, and we're in middle school. So just going from one culture shock to another, and then finally getting to high school, and it kind of like was a mesh, so finally coming together all together as one. So growing up as a child in the United States, in the South, with parents who were young, it was a challenge, but it was a good challenge. When I look back over my life, I needed those trials and adversities. And
Mhm.
it's funny because we go through things in our life, especially as children, and we look back on some of the things that happened to us, and we're like, oh, we wish that didn't happen to us. But some of the things that happened to us directly shape who we were supposed to be anyway. So a
Right.
lot of the
Right. Right.
things in which that I went through shaped who I naturally was anyways, and I didn't realize it until I started figuring out who I was and what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm. Awesome. That sounds uh starting off with a bang. That like that sounds very interesting. Just
Mhm.
the fact that it was what the late 80s, if I get it correct, the late 80s or early 90s
Mid
that you were
90s,
talking mid
because I was
90s.
born in 1988. So elementary school, 10 years old. So that's mid late 90s. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And there was segregating on the bus.
Yes.
That okay. What does the life of an author, uh, coach, um, speaker look
Mhm.
like for you at this moment?
Oh man, life looks wonderful.
Yeah.
Life looks wonderful, and I say it looks wonderful because I've chosen the life that I want to live. So, for
Mhm.
instance, I have 7 children. I have 2 younger children that
Wow.
me and my wife have together.
Mhm.
My 2 older children, they come and stay with me half the year. Then I have my 2 younger children in the house, and I have 3 children in the middle. I see them, when I go back and visit home and stuff like that. But being able to homeschool my children. So, like, my wife, she's a nurse. So, she, like, that's what she does. But I'm a natural teacher. Like I told you, I was a former educator, high school educator. So I'm able to educate and homeschool my children and teach them the things that I know they need, as opposed to sending them into a system that wasn't built for them. So
Mm.
that's number one. Number two, I get to move at my own pace in life. I don't have
Mm.
to work. I don't have to be on someone else's time schedule. So a lot
Mhm.
of people, they deal with anxiety, they deal with stress, they deal with all these things because they're always moving on someone else's time. I don't move on anyone else's time. I move on my time.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
get so I can lay in the floor with my children at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and play with toys and read books to them and make sure they
Right.
know all of that. I can I can create my own ideas and put them out to the world. I can talk to who I want to talk to, travel when I want to travel, go to where I want to go to. I can do all of those things. So that's what my life looks like. It's a life of freedom. Now, I
Mm.
can admit I'm not at the level that I want to be at, but I'm living the life that I want to live. So, as I continue to grow into my professions, releasing more books, getting more speaking arrangements, as I begin to do those things and just continue to go higher in those levels, with that comes more income and, even more opportunities. But I've carved my life out to be exactly how I want it to be every single day.
Oh, that actually sounds like a dream as a father myself.
Mm-hmm.
um, it sounds like you've started what some would call uh, sort of financial freedom
Yes.
for yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
also steer your family and your children in the way that you see fit. And let's be clear, we all do that in some
Yes.
ways, somehow. And but just that, like you said, I mean, the world has a deep impact on our kids because they actually spend most of the time out there,
Yes.
when they're in school, when they're in daycare, and we have, very little time with them to impact them in the way that it should be
Yes.
impacted.
Yes,
So
sir.
I really like that. That sounds wonderful. And but so the life of a coach, speaker, that I'm a bit, because I've heard these expressions a lot of times: life coach,
Mm-hmm.
speaker. In I don't know if it has anything directly to do with influencers, but it's more of, um, could you help us understand
Mm-hmm.
what that entails?
Yes, I
Um,
understand.
yeah.
I got you. Okay, so for me, and I only can speak for me. I can't speak for
Hmm.
what anyone else does. So for me specifically, when it comes to say a life coach, and I use the title life coach because that's the term that everyone knows.
Yeah.
I actually, and it's on my website, vjohnsoninspires.com, but at the title, I actually call myself the idea architect. So what I do is I help individuals create ideas or come up with ideas that they themselves can come up with by themselves. I help them see things from a different perspective so that way they can move in the direction in their life that they want to go. So if I say, oh, I'm an idea architect, people are like, what's that? But if I just say, life coach, and they kind of understand the arena that I'm in. So I work with individuals. They may be struggling with it in their life, or they don't know what decision they want to make or what decision they should make in the future. So I help them with that. I'll give you an example. Individual came, he had an issue. He was in school here in Georgia. He was in school and he wanted to be a veterinarian.
Mm.
He was working at the aquarium, which he loved working with animals, but he didn't know what to like. He was like, it's not paying enough. I have bills. This is my love, but it's not paying enough. He was like, I
Mm.
don't know what to do. And I said, well, have you ever thought about, say, like, pet sitting or dog walking? Because at the aquarium, you're making $8 an hour, but you can go and walk dogs and you can, charge people 20, 30, $40 an hour. You get pet sit and you can make a few $100s, a day pet sitting, because people here in America, people pay premium prices for their pets. So they don't play around when it comes to their pets. So they're gonna pay
Right.
top dollar to make sure their pets are getting treated just as well as they do. And
Hmm.
he was like, I never thought of that. He thought he was gonna have to go work some dead end place. Like, yeah, they pay good money, but he wasn't gonna be thrilled. But I gave him an opportunity, or I gave him an idea, helped him create an idea on how to go and still be around animals, which he loved working with animals, still stay in school to continue to go and be a veterinarian and make the money that he needed to make in his life. So that's what I do. I help people create, ideas around the type of life they want to live and how to get there. Because a lot of people, they don't always think critically, or they don't know how to really problem solve. So that's, one of my skills and one of my strengths. So I use it to help people reach their goals and the things that they're trying to do. That's as far as being a life coach. As far as a professional speaker, the topic that I speak on mainly is helping individuals overcome anxiety, specifically through self mastery. So I teach people how to get to self mastery, how to discover self, how to analyze yourself, study yourself, figure out who you are, and then use those attributes when you figure out who you are to then align yourself with the goals and what you want to achieve in life, and then move forward. So I mainly like talking to men, but everyone needs help nowadays, especially when anxiety. But you know, for me, it's just helping men be better in their relationships in their life, be better husbands, better fathers,
Yeah.
yeah, increase their income better their relationships, increase their income, and just focus on being healthy mentally and physically.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So almost exactly a year ago, I released an episode on the podcast with a guy called George Afori. He's from Ghana, where we got to speak about mental health amongst men in the African community. And that's a topic that's how to say, it's a very touchy topic within our community, because as soon as we mention mental health, it's like somebody's going crazy, somebody's going nuts, you know. But we did, and it was just around Christmas, and I think I released just before Christmas, because actually it was a coincidence. But there's also something that I've noticed when it comes to mental health or mental issues amongst maybe men, or maybe generally. But I can refer to men in this way because I remember last year within Norway, there was this famous guy that actually ended his life, I think, the day after Christmas. And fast forward 1 year, we're here again. Just heard about this brother Twitch that got to end his life, you know. And from what I'm hearing, there's some issues of struggles that he was facing. And so I see it very fitting that we discuss something like this within this period of time, Christmas, the season. What is your, how would I say, would you share your thoughts around why you believe that there are people, a lot of people face issues, a lot of men face a lot of issues around their mental well-being during the season, during this period of time?
Okay. Absolutely. Well, there are a couple of factors. Some factors are culturally induced, and some factors are just because of nature. So we touch on the nature factor. Around this time, as we know, it's colder. At least here in America, in the northern hemisphere, it's colder.
As well.
Yeah. So it's colder. It's less sunlight. And those are all factors. So because there's less sunlight, there's less vitamin D hitting the earth, and typically, and then on top of that, we're not. The world has gone to a place to where we don't spend a lot of time outside anymore globally. So there's a lack of vitamin D, and typically, lower vitamin D levels contribute to depression. A lot of people don't realize that, but a lack of vitamin D contributes to depression. So that's the first thing, the natural, like that's out of your control. That's natural. And then you have what is the worldwide culture, which is a man's job is to provide. So culturally or globally, prices have been rising, going up. The cost of living has been going up, but income has kind of stayed stagnant. A lot of men, they're struggling with providing overall. So then you get to this time in the season where globally we've become a consumer globe, and now it's like, okay, we have to give gifts. We have to give gifts. You know, here in America, we have Christmas. Different places have different things around the world. But even Christmas, even Hanukkah has morphed into giving gifts, even though that's not what it initially represented. But even Kwanzaa, we have here in America, like all of these things are centered around gift giving. So as a man, you want to be able to give your family everything that they want, but you just can't. So not only are you struggling because naturally there's less vitamin D coming to the earth, but then you're struggling because you feel like you're inadequate because you're not able to give your family everything, all of their desires. And I think we have to change our perception on what it is to truly be a provider as a man. Like your job isn't to give your family all of their needs. That's actually setting them up for failure. That's being counterintuitive to who you are supposed to be as the man. You're supposed to be leading them into success. You're supposed to be leading them into mental success. If you're consistently giving somebody everything they want, you're setting them up for failure because now, I mean, you go into dopamine chemicals in the brain, and you know how
Mm.
all of that works, and you know the pleasure. What is it? Don't let me just slip my head. Um, thing is called pleasure anticipation or something like that, where basically like you're getting these dopamine hits for rewards. So now you're
Yeah.
giving your family rewards that they really necessarily didn't earn. So now you're setting them up for mental health failure later on, because now they're expecting something. Was like, what's this time of the year? Well, okay, cool, it's this time of the year, but what does that mean?
Mhm.
Also, we've lost the purpose of what seasons mean. So in the time of this time when we're giving gifts, like where did this practice originate at? Why did we start doing this? Why was this type of festive event created around this time of the year? And depending on what culture you're in and under and where they were at, typically most of us are under a Eurocentric culture. We just started like it's a Eurocentric culture that's running the world right now. Their culture at this time of the year was extremely cold. They had to deal with a lot of death. They had to deal with a lot of depression themselves because they were higher up in the hemisphere. So they came up with different practices and things to keep themselves going. And then they just went and put that on top of the rest of the world. Where most of us, we don't even live in that type of society or environment, or our ancestors weren't a part of that society or environment, but we've just adopted it because that's who's ruling us right now. So we just got to take all of that into take all of that into account and just like really sit back and think, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing my job? Am I putting a roof over my family's head? Is my family well fed? Are they clothed? You know, yeah, no, I'm not able to give them everything, but am I able to provide to them some luxuries in life? Okay, I'm doing great. We're doing great. Hey, kids, no, you can't get everything, but that don't mean that you have a bad life. That doesn't make me a bad father. Wife, no, I can't give you every single thing that your heart desires, but guess what? You're protected. Guess what? You don't have to worry about if we're out somebody, you know, attacking your life. If someone comes and kicks in our door, you're protected. Our children are protected. That's my job. Everything else outside of that is an extra. And it's not even a necessity. It's just an extra. So once we realize that and we instill that into the world culture, I think more men will start lifting that weight up off of them like they're not doing enough. Because most of us, we're doing plenty. The fact that we're protecting, preserving, and progressing our seed, our lineage, that's really what you're here to do. So we just, you know, just continue to uplift ourselves, keep ourselves in the present moment, knowing, I'm sorry, keep ourselves in the present moment and making sure that we have targeted goals that we're hitting, like not just waking up, letting life throw us where we're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
If you say no, like I did, because I went through it. But once I said, no, this is what I want my life to look like, and this is what I want my life to be, and I'll be very transparent right now. Like I told you, I have 7 children. I have 7 children by 5 women. Do you know how difficult it is to try and please five? Like, and I'm not talking about like, I'm just saying like try to keep happy 5 different women in 5 different houses who have 5 different mindsets. It's
I can
one
only
of the
imagine.
things that drove
Yeah.
me to almost taking my own life
That,
because I was
well,
trying.
speaking of which, because I wanted to pivot into this
Yes,
right there where you started, because
yes,
you actually have a very interesting story.
mhm,
I've learned that you reached a point in your life that you hit rock, like really hit rock bottom,
mhm, yes,
and but you also have a testimony of being able to pick yourself up, and you know how you overcame hopelessness and anxiety.
yes.
Um, why don't you talk us through that? Like, I share this with the audience because I thought it was an amazing story.
Yes. Okay. Um, so real quick, you know, I had, as I told you, my parents had me when they got pregnant with me at 13 and 15, had me when they were 14 and 16. There were a lot of things that I didn't know. I was never a bad person. I never did wrong to anybody. I always helped people, always made sure everybody was good. I always wanted to do the right thing. I always wanted to take care of my responsibilities. I always wanted to work, but I was not given the tools to be successful in life because my parents didn't have the tools to give me. So I'm going through life and I'm just, doing different things, but I'm failing and I'm failing and I'm failing and I'm failing. And then, I'll go through one divorce, fail. having children, failing relationships, failing, meet my current wife. And, we're struggling, going through our struggles. And then we get into an argument and we were arguing about money. And what the argument represented was me failing again because this was the first woman that I had met where she didn't care about, like, I didn't have to worry about other men in the picture. I didn't have to worry about her, talking to other men, entertaining other men. She didn't care about, oh, I didn't drive the fanciest whips or, wore the latest clothes. She didn't care about none of that. She just wanted a man who you all could support one another and build together. And it seemed like I was failing then. I got the woman I had asked for and I was failing. So I was just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Like I've tried, like I legitimately have tried everything I knew to try. Like I wasn't out here being crazy or, being malicious to anybody. I literally was trying to be a great person that wasn't working. And I had decided to take my life. And I went through like, really wrote out 4 suicide letters, my wife, my children, the rest of the world, and my other family and friends. Like, hey, look, this is where I'm at. This is how I got there, XYZ. And then I went to my wife to tell her because I didn't want her to just walk in and find me dead in the middle of the floor. So I walked in to tell her. And when I walked in to tell her, like, it broke her. Like, why are you doing this to me? She was pregnant at the time with our first child. And I said to her, hey, because I'm effed up and I don't know how to fix it. And that wasn't me consciously saying that. That was my subconscious talking. And so I end up going through this transition period of just trying to figure things out because I was like, okay, my wife really needs me here. And I made a promise to myself. And most people, they're like, okay, I'm not going to kill myself. And I've said that I'm going to try everything I can because it was a situation that happened earlier where it was something that I left out that I didn't try. So I was like, okay, I know there's at least one thing I could try that could have made my life better. And I'm going to try it moving forward in the future. So if there's one thing that I missed, maybe there are other things that I missed. And so I said, I'm not going to not kill myself. I'm just not going to kill myself until I try everything I can to make my life better, to get to where it is that I wanted to get to. So I took myself on a journey. Eventually, my back ended up going out. I had a freak accident, back went out, couldn't walk for 4 or 5 months. And in that state of not being able to walk for 4 or 5 months, it forced me to not run from becoming who it was that I was supposed to be. Because prior to that, I had always tried to find a way how to do what I need to do, but everything that I was always doing was basically, not to be disrespectful to what anyone else is doing, but to me it was peanuts. So like I'm doing little things to make ends meet or to make money, and I'm doing things, but it's bringing me back peanuts. So what I was forced to do and not being able to walk was bunker down and figure out who I was, so then I could create something great to live the life that it is that I wanted to live. So in that bed, I took accountability for my life. Like I'm where I'm at because of my decisions. Like I'm the one that created all these children with women that I should have waited to figure out, are they the woman I should be laying with? I'm the one that decided to not go to this college versus this college, or to continue even into adulthood, involving myself with playing a sport that I didn't want to play, that I didn't love. I'm the one that, went and applied for jobs that I didn't want to apply for, just because I, had to make money. I'm the one that lived it. I'm the one that made those decisions. So I'm the one that made these decisions. I'm the one that got me in the position that I'm in. So it's my job to get myself out. So I need to do whatever it takes to get myself out. That's morally correct. That's righteous. It's my job to get myself out. So then I went on a journey and I went through self-discovery. So I learned who I was. Now I did different things to learn who I was. Took different personality tests. Studied my zodiac sign, my life path number. And then I started asking myself questions. I became mindful, like, what's going on? One of the questions that really helped me was, what is something that comes, it's 2 questions, I'm sorry. What's something that comes easy to me that's difficult for others? And then also, what is something that multiple people who have no relation to each other, what is something that they compliment you or tell you you're great at? And that right there was how I got into the idea architect, the life coaching, the helping people see things from a different perspective. Because ever since I was a child, my friends, and then going into adulthood, random strangers would just be drawn to me, and people would just pour their life out to me, and I was able to help them with something that they have been struggling with for years. Just we have a 15-minute conversation, and something that they couldn't get through for years, I was able to help them within 10, 15 minutes. And that was from multiple people who these weren't people who knew each other. These were from people from around the world. I was doing Uber driving, and people would get in my car, and they would just pour their life out to me. Like I'd just be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I don't know, people just felt comfortable telling me what they had going on, and I was able to always give them a solution to their problem. And you're dealing with Uber passengers, you're dealing with people worldwide. And I'm here in
Mhm.
Atlanta, so Atlanta is like, people think Atlanta is black capital of America, but Atlanta is actually multiple cultures. So I had people from all over the world who they all would say the same thing. Oh wow, I never thought of that. So that's how I was able to learn myself, and then I went to self love. I had to go to therapy. I had to get therapy because going through some of the traumas that I went through in life, going through some of the hurt, me being a naturally loving person and being taken advantage of by other people, it caused me to close myself up so I didn't get hurt. And by me closing myself up, I had put up walls and put up locks and locked myself away from my inner self. And I didn't know how to access my inner self. So I had to go to therapy and get a professional to help me unlock those locks and tear down those walls so that way I could get back to me. I accepted me. One of the biggest things that helped me was figuring out who I am, but accepting all of me. See, most people, they just want to accept the good part of them. They don't want to accept what's not so good. But you have to accept what's not so good in order for you to truly love yourself wholly. You can't only love the good. You have to love the not so good. And that comes with that. What happens is we're in this society where we want to be people pleasers, where we strive for perfectionism, and all of those things are just signs of trauma. All of those things are signs of hurt and pain that you have not overcome. You can't be perfect. You can't do it all. And knowing that you can't do it all releases the stress of feeling like you have to do it all. So what I did was I learned who I was. And here's the wonderful thing. Once I learned that, and me and my wife started studying who we were, we stopped bumping heads because my wife and I, we're opposite. We're a lot alike, but we're opposite. So my strengths are her weaknesses, and her strengths are my weaknesses. So most couples when they get together, they bump heads because oftentimes you're arguing. Most marriages and most couples have an issue, and most times it's not an issue of morality. Most people aren't having issues because of cheating or infidelity or something crazy like that. Most people are just having an issue because of a difference of opinion or a difference of character. That's it. You
Coexisting.
are Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. So once we got that helped a lot. So it was like, hey, babe, I'm great at creating big pictures and creating great ideas. I suck at having attention to detail. I absolutely, and you saw it at the beginning. Like, if my wife was here, the lighting would have been good. The setup would have been nice. Everything would have been perfect. But
Yeah.
she's not here. So, but hey, guess what? I accept that about me. I did the best that I could do. And when it comes to needing a big idea, my wife comes to me, hey, babe, I'm thinking about this. How can I, like, here, I'm thinking about these little details. How can we blow it up and make it great, make it big? So that's what we do now. But I love myself. And then as I transitioned through self accountability, transition into self study, transition into self love, then I had to learn self mastery. And all self mastery was my goals aligning with my actions. The caveat to that is, in order for you to know what your true goals are, you have to know who you truly are. You have to know what your purpose, like people call it your purpose, what your skills, purpose, whatever. Once you figure out what that is, then you can then create goals that align with taking you to that highest version of yourself. And then all of your actions should line up with that. And then that's self mastery. And that's once you get all of that together and you're dedicated, um, not just motivated, but you're disciplined to do that, to make sure you're staying in the line. All of your actions should line up with your goals. Then that's how you can that's how at least I broke free of those mental barriers and anxiety and hopelessness and battles with suicidal thoughts and battles of low self-esteem. That's how I was able to overcome those.
Hmm. Wow, that's interesting. From what you're saying, this is what I'm gathering. Um, that finding your purpose, you know, really aligns you in a different way. Me, for example, things that I struck my healing process. Um, I, I can accredit my healing to three different aspects. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
so I accredit my healing to Jesus, therapy, Jesus, my wife, therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That those
Yep.
those are my that's my healing process, and it's continual.
Yep.
I have kids too, and they are involved in it. So, but people have kids and still have issues, mental
Mm-hmm.
issues. You experience it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a wife and still have mental issues, but we all need to find some way somehow to be able to find this um, uh, purpose in life. What is my existence about? And
Mm-hmm.
for the way I understand it, if you do not find a way to serve, which a lot of us call purpose, we just have different ways of
Yes.
serving.
Mm-hmm.
You were able to find your way in the way you did, but a way of serving others. We say that all successful people in the world today are successful because they serve.
Yes.
Um, but it's easier said than done because
Mm-hmm.
people, like, you have a lot of questions these days is about what is my purpose, or how do I find my purpose.
Yes.
What would you say to those that are struggling and finding what their life is about, what they should be doing out there, what to bring fulfillment to themselves?
Absolutely. Um, in regards to finding your purpose, and I kind of touched on it. If you kind of want to start at the elementary level of finding your purpose, one of the quickest, easiest ways that you can figure out, like, why am I here on Earth? Literally, would have multiple people said that you're great at doing, and they don't have a connection to each other. That's how you know it's something that you authentically do. That's how you know it's not just this person trying to boost you up and make you feel good. It's like, for instance, if this person over here says you're great at art, and this other person over here who they don't know, person one, says you're great at art as well, then maybe your purpose is somewhere in being artistic, and you have to figure out how can you um best express that. And that comes through trial and error, because even in my walk, even in my walk, when I thought I knew, I didn't know. Like, I started an appliance repair business. When I figured out, I like to work with my hands, I like to create things, I like to be a creator. That was one of the things I like to do. I was like, okay, I can fix appliances. So I started an appliance repair business. I learned how to do that. That didn't work out for me. The back ended up going out. I was trading in the stock market. I wrote books and all of these things. And it just took me going through trial and error and not being afraid. That right there. And I'm glad you touched on the faith piece. Because I can attribute my faith walk to me getting to where it is that I need to get to, because I'm a Torah keeper. I keep the Mosaic law. And in Deuteronomy 20, the Most High literally says in Deuteronomy 20 that when you're going up against adversity and battles and you're going into a fight, he tells you not to be fearful.
Mhm.
Being fearful is a sin. So if you're living your life fearful, then you're in sin. And also, we know sin in the sense of what it means is to miss the mark. So if you are in fear, then whatever it is that you're aiming for, you're going to always miss getting there. So if you're someone who's trying to find purpose, but at the same time you're living in fear, you're never going to find purpose, because your purpose is actually on the other side of what it is that you're fearing. Whatever it is you're afraid to go up against, or whatever it is that your struggle is, your purpose is on the other side of that. So if you get on the other side of that fear, then you'll be able to find what it is that you're called to do, or some semblance to it. So those of you all who are out there, that you're trying to figure it out, like, you have to be bold in your search. You cannot be passive in your search. You cannot be low in your search. You cannot be afraid or scared in your search. You have to be very bold, and you have to be very intentional in your search, because that is what's going to lead you to where it is that you want to get to.
Um, that actually just had brought a lot of thoughts to mind. Actually, you're right. Fear.
And I'm sorry,
I,
really quick.
yeah,
And this is because you mentioned earlier you have a wife as well, correct?
yeah, I do.
You have a wife. When my turning point came, what I had realized is prior to my wife, my current wife, and all of my previous relationships, I was a people pleaser. Like I wanted to naturally. I was raised in a single parent house with my mother. You know, she taught me, you know, to basically put women on a pedestal. Like that's how I was taught. So now I'm living my life to please these women, and so I'm always doing different things, like changing myself to please them. When I got with my wife, and we were having our issues, and I started figuring out who I was, and it was like, no, I need to move forward in this. And my wife didn't agree with it at first. When I started like self-studying, when I started taking courses and paying for online classes and things like that, my wife did not agree with that. She said that's money that we could be putting toward bills. And I said, so what we're not going to do is focus on bills, because we're going to have bills for the rest of our life. Like the bills are paid. I'm not going to pay extra money to something that I've already, you know, paid the required amount to. So it caused a lot of friction in my marriage. But prior in previous relationships, I would have folded. I would have been like, okay, babe, you want me to do this? Okay, I'm going to do that. I stood up, and I was afraid to lose my wife. But I said I would rather lose my wife doing what I know to do and doing it my way than to lose my wife doing it her way. Because if I lose it doing it her way, I can only blame me. But if I lose it doing it my way, I can be like, all right, well, I did it. Like I did it the best way I know how to do. And when I did that, and me and my wife have had this conversation, she said it was when you stood up and you said, no, this is what I'm doing. That's when like she was like, oh no, like I really respect this man. And she started to follow. And it took some time. We still had to grow, but that fear of me losing the person that I was with, when I finally overcame that, that's when I was able to transition to what it is that I wanted to go into. So a lot of men, to they're afraid to really go where it is that they want to go to, because they're afraid that it might cost them their wife. They're afraid that it might cost them their family. And guess what? It might, because it cost me my first wife. It did. I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. And it cost me my relationship with my two sons from my first wife. It hurt. But I've got a greater wife and I'm living a greater life. So you might lose, but you might not. But you will never know if you will or will not unless you go through it and go to it. You have to, or else you're gonna be struggling with those thoughts. I'm so sorry. Have you heard of the book The Way of the Superior Man?
No,
Okay, in The Way of the
I haven't.
Superior Man, the author talks about how as a man, like it's your job to go out and create. It's your job to go out and produce mass greatness in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
if you allow your family to hold you back from that, what's eventually going to happen is you're going to start resenting them, because they're holding you back from the greatness that it is that you really want to do. See, most men are just doing something to provide, but they're not necessarily living in their actual greatness. But then what's going to wind up happening is they're going to see that you're not living your full self, and then they're going to start resenting you. So it's gonna be an issue anyway. Now, I'm not telling people to go out here and just throw their family. I'm not telling that, but there's a way for you to provide adequately and in abundance and still do what it is that you're called to do. And that's what I teach men how to do. That's why I teach men how to find what it is that they want to do. I'm sorry, find what it is that they're great at doing, and then find a career source or an income source tied to that thing. Here in America, I
Mm.
don't know how it is around the rest of the world. Here in America, we have a lot of different opportunities for that. Like one of the things I teach men is, okay, what are you great at? What do you love to do? Or you go get a government contract that aligns with that. So now you're making, 5, 6, 7 figures with government contracts, doing what it is that you love to do, and still providing for your family and being a service to the community. So um, I just had to throw that out there, because a lot of men are struggling because they don't want to lose their family, and rightfully so. I get it. I don't either, but you're going to lose them anyways if you don't be who it is that you're supposed to be.
I hear you there. I hear you. I think I choose to look at it in a way of a healthy balance.
Hmm.
That two things can coexist. For
Yes.
and in most cases, um, I personally believe that there are two ways of looking at it. Like if I take the analogy of Adam, from
Hmm.
the Garden of Eden, um, Adam, was presented with work
Hmm.
before he was presented with
With a woman.
his the woman, right?
Yes.
And I think there is where maybe most of us guys, or younger guys, including myself, I maybe did it wrong to some
Hmm.
extent, is that we are supposed to find our work, our purpose, our
Yes.
what we are here for.
Yes.
And when you find that, you are then able to find someone in alignment with
Yes.
that that
Yep.
won't contradict what you are doing. It's a different thing when you are already in it, and then
Hmm.
the light switch on, and like,
Yeah.
well,
In that.
I
Yep.
need to do this and this, and they're like, hey, I didn't. The woman is like, hey, I didn't sign up for this. That's not
Yes.
what I signed up
Yes.
for.
Yes.
And then you have some clashing going on there, and of course there's always grace for every situation in life. You can make it work, but I just choose to look at it in that way, that there can be a healthy balance, but preferably, the way in which we were built is we are actually supposed to find what we, get working, start doing, working with your hands, be within your purpose. And I think
Yes.
that's what meant it brings us a lot of fulfillment. And you even when you keep busy like that, sometimes you don't even have time to feel down, or feel anxieties and
Yes.
all sorts of things. So I really think that this purpose thing and men's mental health in a way kind of goes simultaneously, that
Yes.
if we have one on you know uh in our life, we are able to balance things off.
Yes.
So I was just trying to comment on what you just said, but that
No,
in a
and
way
I
of yeah.
100% agree with you. That's
Mhm.
actually me and my current wife. We got married. Like that's the only regret that I have in my marriage is I didn't wait to figure my thing out. Now,
Mhm.
like you said, we still figured it out together, but it could have been. Here's the thing: life is already going to be challenging. Life is not easy. You can do
Oh,
everything right, and life is still a challenge. Like
correct.
life is so we tend to add extra burdens onto our life that we don't need to, and
Mhm.
that's one of them. So that's one of the things. Not that I did. My regret isn't marrying my wife. My regret is not having my stuff together before getting with her, because it would have took away some of these unnecessary burdens that we dealt with. But I
Right.
100% agree with what it is that you said, and that's what I do tell men. If you aren't with a woman, get your purpose first. And I learned that when I read Rosa Parks' autobiography, as well
Mhm.
as Malcolm X's autobiography, because Rosa Parks, she met her husband. Her husband was already, involved in civil rights, doing civil rights work,
Mhm.
and she knew what he was doing. So she was able to say, "Hey, is this what I want to attach myself to?" Like my husband is doing things that, if found out, he can get killed doing it, and she still made the conscious choice to go be with him. Like, so she already knew what she was getting herself into. And she says this in her book, Versus, had he gotten into it when they got married, she'd have been like, whoa, hold on, I didn't sign up for that. And
Mhm.
Malcolm X's wife, Betty, she same exact thing. She already knew what she was getting with Malcolm X. So he was already in the work. So him not being at home all the time, him traveling, going to all these interviews, it didn't bother her as much as it would another woman, because he was already in it. So yeah, you are absolutely correct. I agree with that 100%.
All right. I got to see something on your page the other
Mm-hmm.
day, called "The Seven Pillars of Manhood." What is that about?
So the 7 core pillars of manhood are, 7 things that I came up with to kind of give men maybe like a baseline to help them with figuring out manhood. Like I stated earlier, and I make sure I reiterate this. My parents had me when they were 14 and 16. My father was 16. He was nowhere near a man.
Mm-hmm.
And he did the best that he could, but he was still a boy when he had me. And he was a boy who didn't have his father. So, and his father didn't have his father. So you have this generation of not being able to pour manhood into a man. So I said, I know there are a lot of people that struggle with this. I was lucky enough to be able to circle back around and see the loop and go and learn what I needed to be a man. So I was like, okay, let me put this out here for other people who need to figure out what it is that they need. So I came up with the 7 core pillars of manhood. And also I heard something somewhere that said, you have a lot of people who are religious and a lot of people have the 10 Commandments. Nobody has their own personal commandments. Like the 10 Commandments are cool. They're great. We all need them. But you need to have your own set of personal commandments to govern your life by so that way you can be personally successful. So that was one of the things that, kind of helped me come up with these 7 core pillars. So I just sat down like, okay, what are the bases of manhood and what can we use to then help men, be who it is that they're trying to be to and kind of give some quick, but that encompasses all of manhood. So if you want to, I can go through the 7 pillars really quick and what it is that they mean. Give a little short overview of what they mean. Okay. So I got the first pillar, which is the first thing is to possess a set of core principles. So you said you follow Jesus Christ. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Some people are Muslim, some people are Buddhist, but you have to have some type of moral compass that is guiding you. If you don't have a moral compass that's guiding you, then you're going to make immoral decisions a lot of times in life, and you're not going to know why. So you have to have a higher level of something that's guiding you outside of yourself, so that way you can make righteous decisions, not just for yourself but for the greater good. If you don't, you're going to do more harm in the earth than you're going to do good. Then as a man, you have to be balanced. Right now, you have this thing where it's like hyper masculinity versus being in touch with yourself. Like you have to find that balance. Like you can't be too hyper masculine. You can't also be too soft as a man. Like you have to have that balance because it's your job to direct the way of the world. That's your job as a man. Your man is to deal with your job as the man is to lay a foundation for the distant future of the world. If you're imbalanced and you get thrown all over the place, you're not going to be able to lay a solid foundation for your future generation. So you have to have that balance to be able to make great decisions and to be able to set up your lineage for success down the line. Then you have to possess inner peace. Inner peace, and we touched on that earlier, is being at peace with who you are as well as who you are not. You are not everything. You can't do everything. And that's okay. As a man, you have to accept, no, these are my strengths. Absolutely, we work on our weaknesses or we work on the things that are not our strengths. But at the same time, you have to accept, yes, I've put myself in many situations where it's like me trying to be everything or me trying to do everything made myself and the situation worse. Where if I just said, you know what, I can't do that. That didn't make me less of a man by admitting it's something I can't do. That actually made me a man because it's like, no, that's not something that's in my skill set. But what I did was I went and found somebody who that was in their skill set, and the job still got done. So at the end of the day, we got to realize that inner peace causes us to get the job done, not necessarily we do the job. You don't get no cool points for messing something up. Like you don't. Ain't no real point in real life. There's no points for trying. You either got it done or you didn't get it done. Like you trying and you messing it up is why do that when you can just go get somebody else? So be at peace with yourself and know who you are, who you are not. Building a strong house. I touched on earlier, talking about my father. I had the luxury of knowing my 2 grandmothers, my 2 great grandmothers, and my 2 great-great-grandmothers. I didn't know any of my biological grandfathers. I met one of them one time in passing at my grandmother's house when I was like 6 or 7. And then he ended up, 2 of my grandfathers were murdered. at different times. Like one of them, when my mother's father was murdered when she was young. I'm sorry, she was 8, and then my great grandfather was murdered when I was young, and that was the one that I had met one time. So I made a promise to myself that I would be so great in this earth that my lineage will know who I am, because I don't want my lineage not to know where they come from. I don't know where I come from. I don't know. I've started studying now. So I've done the DNA test and I've been tracing it back and finding my ancestors, but I didn't personally know any of my grandfathers. And so that caused me to have a weak foundation. I didn't know what it was to be a man. I didn't know a man who was, I didn't know any of those things. So I had a weak foundation and I had to grow into what it is that I need to grow into. But as a man, it's your job to prepare your children to succeed and to prepare your children's children to succeed. So that comes from building a strong house. Your house has to be, the pillar of discipline and order. Because that's your job as a man. Discipline, order, structure, and by you giving those things to your children, you also then give them self-esteem, high self-esteem, and confidence. But when the house lacks those things, they lack confidence. And you see, I don't know how it is in other countries, but here in America, a lot of the boys, because masculinity is being attacked, as well as fathers are not in the home like they should be, or as much as they could be. Boys are growing up without that order, structure, and discipline, and then they're lacking self-confidence, and then they're acting out in violent ways because they're unassure of themselves and their talents and gifts. So you have to build a strong house to make sure that your children could go out and do what it is that they're supposed to do. Next, we have you have to build or rebuild your community, like you talked about earlier. Part of your purpose, or your purpose essentially in some way, shape, or form, is a manifestation of serving others. So no matter how it is, your job is to serve others. It's that Deuteronomy 6:4. It says, the Most High Elohim is one. We're all one. Everything is one. We're all connected as one. So by you building or rebuilding your community, what you're doing is you're actually rebuilding or building yourself, and you're building your future lineage. Because if you're not rebuilding your community, eventually that's going to come in, and you're going to have to deal with it, or your children are going to have to deal with that. So you have to rebuild that up, and that's how you do your service. So rebuilding your community, and as the man, you offer the structure for the world. There was a group of gentlemen. I want to say it was in Detroit. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact city, where for like the first week or two, they were having fights every day. Like there were maybe 5 to 10 fights every day at the school. A group of fathers decided to just go to the school. They didn't do anything crazy. They just showed up, shook the kids' hands when the kids were coming into school, just walking around the hallway. Do you know when those fathers were there? There was 0 fights. There were 0 fights in that school. They were having about 5 to 10 fights a day for 2 weeks straight. Those fathers came, no fights. Manhood, fatherhood, masculinity, that it offers guidance, and it offers these things that will rebuild the community that we need. So it's your job as a man to make sure that you keep the discipline in the community, so that way the community can move forward. And then you have your health as well. You can't do nothing if you know you're unhealthy. Like my back's messed up. I got a doctor's appointment. I had one this morning. Got another one. Got to get my back right, because at the end of the day, I still got a job I have to do as a father. I still got a job I got to do as a husband. So I got to figure out how to get this back right. But it's your job, to make sure you staying healthy. Also, when you're healthy, you're actually 10 times more productive as a man when you're healthy versus when you're unhealthy. So your production rate goes up at least 10 times when you're physically healthy. Your mind's more clear when you're healthy. So you exercise and you working out. It's your mind and body working together in this fluid dance that allows you to be the greatest version of yourself. So you need to have that health that allows you to go longer and to do the things that it is that you need to do to build up the wealth and the structure of your family. And then the last thing is leave a good name in this earth. It's important that you leave a good name in this earth, because your children and your children's children are supposed to have doors open for them because of your name. So you can either shut the doors for your children or open the doors for your children. And if you're doing great things in this earth, and no, you're not going to please everybody. You're not. You're not going to please everybody. Like when Martin Luther King was alive, he wasn't a loved man like he is now. Malcolm X was a hated man. They love him now. He was a hated man, but guess what? Them people, kids can go anywhere they want to because of their name, because of the name that they love. They did great things in this earth. So you have to do great things to leave a good name, so that way your lineage can 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 reap the benefits of that. Then they create great names so their lineage, and it goes on and on and on. So those were the 7 pillars that I created. I feel like every man should take and kind of model, or fit to his circumstance. But I thought that was a good starting point for manhood.
I think that is a bombshell that we can end this session on. uh, Especially with that last pillar. A good man leaves a legacy for his children's children.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that, and I'm gonna go back to your page and really go through some of those 7 points, because
Yes,
it makes a lot of sense. And I
mm-hmm.
hope, anybody out there that's watching, I'm going to drop all the links, all of your, the Instagram page, the YouTube
Mm-hmm.
videos, what's it called? The
The
website.
website.
We got a
Yes,
website
sir.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to put them right under the description, and get out there, follow, we in the season right now that can be difficult, can be lovely for most, but difficult for some.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be our brothers keepers, and speak to each other. Find out how our strong friends are doing in this period of time, and just support each other. That's the reason why we're even here right now doing this, because we feel like it's very timely. You
Yes.
know,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to thank you so much, man, for showing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's been wonderful.
Can I say one more
I
thing?
Sure,
Say one more
sure.
thing real quick.
Please do, please do.
Really quick. Commandment. One of the commandments is to remember the past. And the reason why I'm bringing
Mm-hmm.
this up is because, like you said, a lot of men are struggling right now. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're going through that phase and you're going through that dark phase, I know it can be hard, but I need you to look back over your life and look back all of the other trials and tribulations that you went through and how you overcame them, and how you're going to overcome this one as well. You have to remember that you already have everything you need inside of you to overcome whatever it is that you're struggling with. Don't give up. Don't quit. You can't lose if you don't quit. You only lose if you quit. You will not lose if you don't quit. Know that if you keep going, you're going to eventually win, and know that you've already overcome everything that's come up against you, and you'll overcome whatever it is that's coming up against you now.
To that. All right, Virgil. Thanks so much, man. And
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
for sure. And I'm gonna keep up with following you, and hopefully having a discussion sometime soon. I
Absolutely.
find it very, very interesting, having a conversation with you. So
Appreciate you.
I'm sure we will talk again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right.
Definitely. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Bye.
sir.